Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alaska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.
The National Weather Service.
And good Monday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this 2nd of May. May already, and with May comes thunderstorms across the interior and the west today. We'll have a look at the satellite picture here in just a minute. Weather.gov/Alaska is another place you can go to check out the visible and the infrared satellite pictures like we'll show you here anytime you want. And you'll be able to get to radar information as well as other information that could help you make better decisions about should I fly through that area today, or is it looking a little bit too stormy, and we're obviously into that part of the year. The weather info line is open at 800-472-0391. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and using the hashtag AKwx will help zone you into the conversations happening all over Twitter about Alaska weather, and of course our daily afternoon map briefings at NWS Anchorage and NWS Alaska using AKwx TV to search for this show in its entirety on your mobile device. And again, that helps you with your bandwidth if you want to catch up on the show or just skip and fast forward to the part that you're really most interested in. What about breakup? As of today, around 10:45 or so, we saw plenty of changes from when the last time I spoke with you on air. We were talking about some to mostly open parts of the Yukon, and boy, has that changed a lot, all the way downriver from Circle now. We still have some ice all the way into the middle Yukon Valley, but there are certainly some open sections there. As you get out into the YK Delta, things have certainly improved there, and we're still watching for some of that ice to open up. But a lot of improvements, especially around Eagle and then downriver, and we'll continue to see those changes westward. I'm sure as we go throughout the week, probably just this afternoon, a lot of changes in many places, thanks to the extraordinary warmth that many of you are seeing today. Now, looking up north, you can still see that most of our northern rivers are still mostly ice. There are some unknown sections there. But by and large, changes are happening very quickly, and no doubt about it. So as you see changes on your river and in your village, whether it's a good change or a bad change, please let us know. You can do that easily on Facebook if you just search for NWS Alaska. That's our page, and you can leave a comment there. You can like the page. We'd love that too, but we'd really like that information more than anything else. Find us on Twitter at NWS APRFC. Of course, you know that's short for Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center. And folks are watching that account all the time, and we'll get back to you with your report, and we'll certainly keep an eye on that. As always, the phone is probably the best way to get a human in rapid order there. 800-847-1739 to reach the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center. You can email those folks as well. They're on pretty much 24/7 during River Watch, nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov, and then of course online weather.gov/aprfc. Now, as we look at the satellite picture, here's the visible satellite picture, always my favorite, as you know. And if you look very carefully, not only with the motion, but just the patterns of the clouds, you can probably pick out a couple areas of low pressure where clouds are being pulled inward like a vacuum and also spiraling in that counterclockwise fashion. So we've got one about here. We've got another one out here across the YK Delta, and we've got another much broader area of low pressure across the central and western Aleutians. Watch one more time. Keep your eyes on here, here, and that spot right there. Here we go. And watch what happens, especially to this area right here. Look at all that bright white bubbling up. You know what that is? Showers and thunderstorms. Convective areas of clouds developing in the heat of the day in the lee side of the Alaska Range, and also on the lee side of the Chugach and the Kenai Peninsulas. So We're seeing a lot of things resulting today in today's weather simply due to the heating of the day and also weather disturbances moving from east to west. Now, everything out west here seemed pretty dry. The satellite picture really not pointing to a whole lot of wet weather falling from the clouds. Surely there was areas of drizzle and some showers passing through. And southeast also starting to catch a little bit more of a break. There were some pockets of rainfall there after a very wet weekend there. Some record-setting rain for many of you in southeast. Conditions are starting to change already toward a drier period as we head into the midweek. So if you're tired of the weather that's fit for the fishes, changes are coming your way there. So a lot of things interesting going on in the visible satellite picture. Here's the infrared. And we can tell the main moisture channel here has been pointed right through southeast. Kind of hard to miss that, isn't it? And a lot of that's working its way back over into the interior. So the main moisture pump in this process is sitting over the Gulf, channeling all that moisture northward. But remember, the interior has been heating up. So as that happens, it's bubbling those clouds up and helping all that motion to get going into the upper part of the atmosphere. As that happens and those clouds vertically develop, that makes possible lightning and of course some heavier downpours of rainfall. Now if the air is really dry underneath and that wet weather is evaporating on the way down, even if it's a heavy rainfall to start way up here, if it's too dry down here, you know what that turns into. If you're a pilot, you surely know the answer. A lot of wind, right? So when we get a line or even spotty areas of showers and thunderstorms developing and that downward rushing wind hitting the ground, whether it's moving this way or this way or this way or this way, if that runs into each other, that's where we get into that low-level wind shear. So pilots should always remember that convection, of course, implies the danger for icing, turbulence, and low-level wind shear. So be extra careful there, and you know, lightning's no fun either. So a lot going on in the interior, and those summer-like changes certainly taking shape. Out west, we see the much broader area of low pressure moving eastward, and that is going to draw in some areas of southeasterly winds, probably a little breezy at times across the Alaska Peninsula in the coming days, but surely for more people across the south and western coasts, Seward Peninsula, the interior, the Yukon River as it's melting out south central, and even southeast, warmer weather is going to be a part of your week. Here's a look at the weather map. Showers and thunderstorms today across the west, across the Alaskan border. This was a much hardier area of rain and thunder across the Alaskan today. And we did have some pockets of rainfall, even some convective showers, kind of hit and miss areas of brief, but maybe even heavy rainfall for just a moment or two around parts of the valleys there around the Chugach, and then westward into the Matanuska and Susitna valleys. Maybe that helped to clear up the dust in your area. That's been a problem around South Central for sure. For southeast, some pockets of rainfall there. A lot of that again starting to ease up and move northward. And here's this really broad front. Really not a whole lot of moisture to work with at the surface, so we're not seeing a whole lot of widespread rainfall with that at the moment. As we get into tonight, we wouldn't be surprised to see some light rain around the Alaska Peninsula. On the back side of this, it could be cold enough for a little bit of light rain and snow to mix. Some of that working its way into the central and eastern Aleutians, so not a whole lot of heavy or widespread rainfall, but that's the area that we draw in where it is possible. High pressure sitting across Icy Cape and Cape Yakutat, showing 1,017 millibars there in opposition to a weaker area of low pressure just east of Kodiak Island and outside of Prince William Sound. That's going to keep that rainfall and that low moisture kind of just pushing right up against the Chugach Range and into Prince William Sound. Showers there around the Alaska Range and south and west, and there's also a chance for some light snow showers across the northern parts of the Alaskan border from Kaktovik southward, maybe as far west as Arctic Village. Otherwise, around the North Slope, it's fog and maybe a few flurries there, nothing too substantial for you. And then a lot of clearing just south of the Brooks Range, so really different weather south of the summits, and then really for the rest of the southern two-thirds of Alaska and into southeast, we still have a few showers lingering through tonight. Now, as we get into tomorrow, more of the same there from southwest all the way into the middle Yukon Valley. Showers and thunderstorms are possible. Same old weather pattern there. We still have our very broad southerly flow pushing moisture in. Remember that moisture channel that we were looking at on the satellite picture is still kind of arching over into this overall flow there. So we still have enough to work with there for at least probably widely scattered showers and storms across the lower Yukon Valley into the middle Yukon. Out west, it's still cold enough for some rain and snow showers, some of that around the Pribilofs, and showers of rain all the way across the Alaska Peninsula and into Bristol Bay. and certainly south central and parts of southeast. But overall, drier weather for you in southeast, I promise. As we get into Wednesday, you can see that drying trend continuing there as a ridge of high pressure starts to push more and more of that moisture out of the way. We'll still have our chance for light rainfall around Prince William Sound and the eastern side of the Kenai Peninsula. And those widely scattered showers and storms will once again bubble up in the heat of the day from the YK Delta into the lower and middle Yukon valleys and into the upper Yukon, it looks like again. Chance of snow showers east of St. Matthew to about St. Lawrence Island, and probably looking at some pockets of fog across the north slope as we head into the midweek, but drier for many again across the southeast. Here's what we saw for temperatures today. Again, a very mild day for many areas. 40s and 50s for southeast, 50 around Juneau, upper 40s to low 50s as you head into southern southeast from Petersburg to Wrangell, Ketchikan, and Annette were all toasty. Hyder saw 57, 52 in Sitka. Prince William Sound, a little bit cooler on the eastern side. You can see that. Valdez was only 41. Cordova was 40 degrees. And when you make it out to the Kenai Peninsula, all of a sudden, especially the Cook Inlet side, temperatures went way up. 55 around Anchorage, 54 around Talkeetna today, 56 in Fairbanks, 44 in Eagle, 55 Fort Yukon. Looking northward still into the Brooks Range, 30s and 40s there. It was about 34 in Aniktuvic Pass late this afternoon. 20s and 30s for the North Slope. Atkasuk was 25, about the same there in Barrow and Wainwright, 28, a little bit warmer for you. Kotzebue Sound temperatures made it above freezing around Kivalliq at 39, 27 in Shishmaref. On the other side of the peninsula, Nome was a blistering 42, 57 in Galena, 55 in Grayling, 57 for McGrath. Aniak saw temps in the mid-50s today. Bethel was 48, 32 in Nunivak Island, 27 for St. Lawrence. Southward, Kodiak Island saw temps in the mid-40s to even 50 degrees around Akiak. Bristol Bay temps in the lower 50s today. The Alaska Peninsula, including Sandpoint, Cold Bay, and Falls Pass, all in the mid-40s. 40 around St. Paul, a little warmer in St. George, and dipped down to about 39 around Atka this afternoon with Shemya showing up at 40 degrees. Overnight low temperatures will stay in the upper 30s to about 40 from the Chain to the Peninsula to Kodiak Island, southwest in the YK, the middle Yukon Valley and the middle Tanana Valley, maybe a little bit milder, closer to 40 there. Southeast in the lower to mid 40s, south central in the upper 30s. Copper River Basin might be a little bit cooler as you would expect. Temperatures closer to the freezing point and North Slope temps still below freezing in the mid-20s there with Nome checking in at 33 overnight. A high there tomorrow, about 10 degrees warmer near 43, 30 around Gamble and St. Lawrence Island. Upper 20s for the North Slope, the middle Tanana Valley and points east in the mid to upper 50s. Even warmer south and west toward McGrath in the upper 50s for many. Southwest coastal temperatures, probably lower 50s there. Kodiak Island, 47. Southeast in the upper 40s and lower 50s for many there. Sitka could be even milder, and 40s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians again. Flying weather shows IFR conditions lingering in the morning for the North Slope and parts of the west coast, including Kotzebue Sound and Shishmaref. Look for IFR conditions in Bristol Bay with a pocket of MVFR around Prince William Sound and southward and along some of the higher terrain in southeast. Look for changes and improvements there by the afternoon. Watch for convection to fire up across the Yukon Valley. Watch for MVFR to linger around Prince William Sound and the western side of Cook Inlet and through the Barren Islands and generally south of Kodiak Island. IFR conditions continue for the North Slope and through the Bering Strait for Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, and the Pribilofs for your Tuesday afternoon. Aniktuvic Pass, we expect to see VFR conditions there and for Adigan Pass. Remember the IFR conditions, though, will primarily be focused on the North Slope, so after you come out of the pass, you might have more trouble than going through it. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, MVFR conditions expected there, and for Rainy Pass throughout your Tuesday. Windy Pass looks to be VFR. Isabel Pass, visual flight rule. Mentasta Pass, VFR flying through most of the day. Tanita Pass, VFR expected there, and for Portage Pass, MVFR through most of the day thanks to the rain. And Chilkoot and White Pass by the end of the day should be VFR. Your freezing levels indicate that there's still warm air aloft across the lower and middle Yukon Valley, and the cold air is still holding on to the North Slope as we saw, and also across the west coast. The surface freezing line all the way up into the Seward Peninsula and then crashing quickly down into parts of British Columbia. Icing potential will linger above 6 to about 7,000 feet, but only in some smaller areas across the northeastern parts of the North Slope, Prince William Sound, and the Kenai Peninsula region from Sandpoint westward toward the Pribilofs above 5,000 feet and also across the western chain. Most of that will be light to isolated moderate. The jet stream has a pretty pronounced trough as it has all winter long, and this is keeping us warm, but it's also keeping the main storm path out of reach from really plowing through Alaska with any great force. So we have a ridge of high pressure across the western contiguous 48 states in North America. And with that, that's keeping a lot of the moisture working up into southeastern Alaska and around the western Canadian provinces, but it's also allowing Alaska to just kind of sit on slow roast as there's a lot of quiet weather over place. So southerlies will continue across most of the interior at 9,000 feet, and as you see, most of the wind speeds there are pretty light. The focus for stronger winds over the Gulf is still there as always, 30 to 40 knots, with stronger winds south of low pressure in the eastern chain, about 30 to 40 knots there. Otherwise, northerlies in the western Bering Sea remain unchanged at 15 to 25. Really not a whole lot of change at 3,000 feet either. We have our broad southwesterly flow sweeping into southeastern Alaska, about 10 to 20 knots at best. A little bit of a faster flow across the eastern Alaska range here at 25 knots. Northeasterlies coming across the north slope at about 15 to 25. And then weak winds guiding in from the south and west around low pressure into the YK Delta, about 10 to 15, a little bit stronger south of the Alaska Peninsula. And we get back into our northerlies across the western Bering Sea, about 10 to 15 there. Turbulence potential, really not a whole lot to talk about. Probably the greater focus ought to be where those thunderstorms fire up again tomorrow, which we said would be the lower and middle, even upper Yukon Valley. Below 5,000 feet, you might run into some gap winds from the Alaska Peninsula into the Bristol Bay region and also across the western chain. That's a look at your aviation forecast. I'll be back with the rest of your marine weather here in just a few minutes.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of Alaska Public Media and the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, welcome to Hangar Flying. Our guest this evening is Danielle Troll. Danielle was on last time and started telling a pretty incredible story of how she got into flying, how she's running a business called Zeta Air Service, and is pretty much a one-person show, but her ideas and her vision and her dedication to the goal she sets, pretty amazing. So we're going to pick it up there. Danielle, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your business. I got the impression you really enjoy the challenge of the business.
Yeah. Probably the biggest challenge I face is with the weather, just being able to be a reliable service, which is almost impossible, but I try my best at that, and that's one big challenge. But also a big challenge that I've faced is in management and managing people and in leadership. Of course, you want everyone to do their job perfectly, but that doesn't always happen, and having to confront people and has been a challenge for me.
Well, you know, you and I've talked about this, and I found your understanding of management and leadership to be very, very mature and very thoughtful. You had mentioned, in fact, a concept of servant leadership. Talk about that.
Yeah, servant leadership is really important to me, and it means to me it's an attitude of humility. It's that you haven't climbed so far up the ladder that you're too cool to help the lowest person working under you. And it's important for businesses to have those people to run efficiently, but if you're too cool to pick up a piece of trash or, I don't know, clean the bathroom or something like that, as an example, it's an attitude of humility and taking care of your team.
So you mentioned weather as a challenge, something that all of us pilots face, and I think you've got a pretty good understanding of risk management and what you need to do. One of the questions I always ask my guests is, what one thing would you say, if we did it differently, it would make flying safer in Alaska?
I think if we slow down and not be in a hurry and do what we know we're supposed to do, don't be lazy, do the steps, and don't skip over stuff, because what if this time that you skipped that is the time that something goes wrong? And when something does go wrong and you know that you did what you were supposed to do, that confidence that you have helps a lot. And I mean, obviously then you don't feel that guilt of, what if I did what I was supposed to do and then maybe this wouldn't have happened? So I think just don't be lazy, do what you know you need to do, and what you learned, and when you're making that decision, just do it.
And take your time doing
Yeah.
it. Those are good words. So I consider you successful. I think you've taken some bold steps, and I think you've got a bright future ahead of you. What advice would you give to young men and women out in the audience about if they were contemplating doing something similar?
Well, it's really important to get as much information as you can. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, but it's good to get that information, those opinions, and weigh the knowledge that you can, or gain that knowledge from others, and use your discernment and make a decision based on what you think is best for your goals. So.
Good. Anything else you'd like to add?
About anything specific?
Well, I mean, gosh, you've talked about your business, and I guess let me ask a little bit different question. Where do you see yourself? And you and I didn't talk about this. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's really hard because I wouldn't have imagined that I would be doing this a year ago.
Yeah.
I definitely have goals for the business that I'm going to work toward, but I have no idea what I'm going to be doing even a year from now. But I'll just take it one day at a time and see what happens.
Well, I can say with a lot of confidence I think you'll be successful.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the program tonight.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. And as I've said before often, this program, Hangar Flying, is brought to you by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, which is totally dependent on member support. Your membership keeps programs like this going. So if you are not a member, please go to our website. You can sign up there. It's $35 a year for individuals and $110 for corporations. We need your help. We need your support, and so that we can bring programs like this, so that we can bring programs like the very recent Seaplane Seminar, our scholarships, the other things the Safety Foundation does. So please help us out, and until next time, fly safe.
Thanks a lot, Harry. See you again on Friday. Here's a look at today's Sea Ice Edge from our expert sea ice analysis at the Anchorage Weather Forecast Office for all of Alaska. And the light blue shaded areas are areas where the ice is concentrated from about 20 to 80% or so. Above that, we shade that in white. And you can see there's been a lot of changes just in the last few days as a gradual drift moves from northeast to south and west. Norton Sound remains open, and any shore-fast ice around Norton Sound probably isn't that fast at all. It's rotting in place, if at all, and a lot of that is on the move and probably unstable. One area to keep track of and be mindful of course, is the region just north of St. Lawrence Island. As hunting activities continue there, make sure you are aware of what you're going out on and how that might be changing over the next couple days. Make sure you give us a call or weather.gov/anchorage/ice.php for the very latest weather information there, 24 hours a day. Looking at southeast, you can see southerlies blowing through the inside around 10 to 20. 2 to 4 foot seas in most areas there, 3 foot seas in the Clarence Strait. A south and westerly wind will blow on the outer coast, but obviously winds have settled down quite a bit after that front's passed through, and the weather should be a little bit nicer as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. You'll notice the winds coming up a little bit more north of Sitka, past Cross Sound and into the Icy Cape area around Yakutat. A southeasterly flow at 20 knots with a 6 foot sea, 10 to as high as 20 knots across the inside. The highest winds, of course, in the Lynn Canal with a 4 foot sea there on a 20 knot flow from the south. Inside of Prince William Sound, a 25 knot wind with a 6 foot sea, southeasterlies on the outside at 7 foot seas there, 4 to 5 foot seas across the western Gulf at 15 to 20, and a light and variable flow coming down Cook Inlet, eventually becoming easterly at 15 west of the Barren Islands, and light winds inside of Shelikof Strait. Looks like a fairly pleasant day on Tuesday in South Central. By Wednesday, conditions begin to change a little bit as winds come up in all areas, 20 to 30 knots across the north and western coast. Inside of Prince William Sound, 25 knots with a 6 foot sea, 30 knots on the outside, 8 foot seas there, and east and northeasterly winds developing in the northern parts of Cook Inlet past Calgan Island. We come up on easterlies at 25 west of the Barrens, and southerlies developing in the Shelikof Strait, still light with a 3-foot sea there on Wednesday. For the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay, we find southeasterlies on the Bering Sea coast, 3 to 4 foot seas on a 15-knot wind, and south and westerlies across the Pacific coast, 5 to 8 foot seas there on a 15 to 20-knot wind for Tuesday. By Wednesday, winds are settling down a little bit and diminishing to 10 knots inside of Bristol Bay with a 2-foot sea, 15-knot winds across the Pacific coast from Castle Cape to Chignik and all the way down past King Cove, 15 knots with a 7-foot sea there, 3-foot seas north of that on the Bering Sea coast. For Tuesday in the Aleutians, west and southwesterly winds will blow around 15 to 25. Look for 5-foot seas across the Bering Sea coast and 9 to as high as 13-foot seas across the Pacific coast with more of a northerly flow from Kiska to Attu at 20 to 25. For Wednesday, all areas, with the exceptions of the far eastern chain, come in on that northerly flow, 20 to 25, with 8 to 9 foot seas from Nikolsky all the way west to Adak and Kiska and Attu, 7 to 8 foot seas there on the Pacific coast. More of a variable flow, though, from Nikolsky to Unalaska. On either side, you're looking at 10 knots, with 3-foot seas on the Bering Sea coast and 8-foot seas around the Pacific coast. Now for the west coast, northerlies will continue across St. Lawrence Island at about 15 knots with a 3-foot sea. As you get out towards St. Matthew, look for that northeasterly wind. Around 2-foot seas are expected. There's southeasterlies for the Pribilofs and more of a light and variable flow closer to Nunivak Island. That becomes more easterly in the Kuskokwim Delta, a 15-knot wind with a 3-foot sea. That diminishes even more to 10 knots with the 3-foot sea on Wednesday. Northerlies continue for St. Lawrence Island down toward Nunivak Island and Eetolen Strait. Northwesterlies around St. Matthew Island, and northerlies for the Pribilofs. St. Paul and St. George should expect about 5-foot seas there. For Tuesday, northeasterlies continue for the North Slope, 20 knots in just about all areas there. As we get into Wednesday, look for a few changes, but not much. More of a southwesterly flow north of Kaktovik. Westward, we're back into the northeasterly winds, and those diminish outside of Kotzebue Sound to about 10 knots over the ice on Wednesday. Recapping tonight's weather, watch for showers and some thunderstorms this afternoon. Most of those will probably die off quickly as we're not really into the peak heating of our summertime season yet. But boy, we are close. Showers and thunderstorms already in early May. Here we go, and we're off to the races. Watch for more of that tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, drier conditions are gradually taking shape for southeast, but you'll still see some showers tonight. A better chance for some light rain across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. Snow showers north of Eagle. And that will continue again tomorrow. Watch for rain and thunder to develop across the Yukon Valley tonight, tomorrow, and again on Wednesday. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.